I think we have all had this exact experience at some point.
Yeah.
You meet someone who claims to be a devout Christian.
Oh, yeah. They check all the boxes.
Right. They go to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
They have the bumper stickers. Maybe they even post Bible verses online all the time. But then you actually talk to them or work with them, and they are, let's be honest, they're downright nasty.
Yeah, it's a real thing. They might be judgmental or narrow-minded or just constantly grumpy. The nasty Christian, as C.S. Lewis calls them.
Exactly. And it's confusing because, 5 minutes later, you meet someone who wants absolutely nothing to do with religion, like a staunch atheist.
Totally.
And yet, they are the kindest, most generous, most easygoing person you've ever met. They're just so nice.
It creates a real paradox, doesn't it? You look at that situation and you think, well, if Christianity is supposed to be this ultimate truth and it's supposed to transform people's lives, why is that guy over there who doesn't believe any of it doing a way better job at being a decent human being?
It is the classic objection. I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians. And honestly, it is a fair point. If faith is a transformation, where is the proof in the pudding?
Exactly.
So today, we're going to tackle this head on. And we aren't just winging it or pulling up random articles. We are doing a deep dive specifically into the mind of C.S. Lewis.
We are focusing on his book, Mere Christianity, and specifically the parts where Lewis tackles this exact problem. And I love that he doesn't dodge it at all.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't make excuses for bad behavior. He actually leans right into this awkward reality to teach us something really profound about what niceness actually is.
And because C.S. Lewis gets into some pretty heavy concepts here, let's take this slowly. Let's explain it easily, step by step, so we really grasped his distinction between just being a nice person and what he calls new men.
That's a good plan. It is a journey from biology to spirituality. We're going to look at his famous factory analogy, his really fascinating theory on the next step of human evolution, and finally, a paradox about personality that I think will surprise a lot of people listening right now.
So buckle up. Let's unpack this. Lewis starts by introducing two hypothetical characters to help us understand this nice atheist versus nasty Christian dilemma. He gives them names, Dick Firkin and Miss Bates.
Those names are just great. So let's paint the picture. First, you have Dick Firkin. He is not a believer. He has no interest in God whatsoever, but he's the guy you want as your neighbor.
Oh, for sure.
He's mild-mannered. He's always in a good mood. He's generous with his time. He's just a naturally nice guy.
Okay, so that's Dick. He's the guy everyone likes. And Lewis points out something kind of funny about why Dick is this way, right?
Yes, and this is crucial. Lewis suggests that a lot of Dick's niceness actually comes down to his digestion.
Wait, his digestion? Really?
I know, it sounds trivial, but think about it. Dick Firkin has good digestion. He sleeps perfectly well at night. He has stable nerves.
He's comfortable.
Right. He probably had a really calm, loving upbringing where nobody ever yelled at him. His serotonin levels are just naturally balanced. Lewis is making the point that Dick is biologically wired to be nice.
So his personality is basically a lucky roll of the genetic dice.
Exactly. And then you have Miss Bates. Now, Miss Bates is a Christian. She really tries hard. But she has a sharp tongue.
Oh, we all know a Miss Bates.
We do. She's easily offended. She's narrow-minded. Lewis describes her as having jangled nerves. She is, frankly, a total pain to be around.
So the outside world looks at these two and says, see, Dick is better than Miss Bates, therefore Christianity doesn't work.
But Lewis says, hold on a second. To understand what is actually happening here, you have to stop looking at them like a consumer judging a final product and start looking at them like a manager running a factory.
Okay, I like this. I'm putting on my hard hat. I'm the factory manager.
Perfect. So look at Dick Firkin. He is Factory A. This factory is filled with brand new high-tech machinery. The gears are oiled. The robotics are top tier.
State of the art.
Exactly. The raw materials coming in are high quality. This factory runs smoothly with almost zero effort. It produces a massive output of niceness.
Because the machinery is just inherently good.
Right. Now look at Miss Bates. She is Factory B. The machinery is old, it's rusted, maybe there's actual sand in the gears.
Sounds rough.
It is. The raw materials are scrap metal. Maybe she has a chemical imbalance, or she had a really traumatic childhood that completely broke her emotional machinery.
I see where this is going.
Lewis argues that you cannot judge the management, which in this case is God's work in a person, just by looking at the total output. You have to look at the improvement relative to the equipment.
Oh, wow.
If factory A, Dick, is producing high output, well, that's just because the machines are good. It takes no effort. But if factory B, Miss Bates, produces even a little bit of kindness or bites her tongue just once when she desperately wants to scream,
That might be a miracle of management.
precisely, that might represent a massive amount of spiritual work.
That is such a huge shift in perspective. So the question isn't, is Miss Bates nicer than Dick? The real question is Miss Bates nicer than she would be without Christianity?
Yes. Lewis is arguing that if you took Christianity away from Miss Bates, she might be an absolute monster. The fact that she's merely unpleasant might actually be a huge victory.
You know, this explains so much. It explains why you can walk into a church and find some genuinely difficult people.
Yeah.
They aren't there because they're perfect. They are there because they know they have broken machinery.
And here is where Lewis flips the script in a way that is actually kind of scary. He warns that the nice people, the Dick Firkins of the world, are actually in a lot of spiritual danger.
Wait, really? How can being nice be a danger?
Because it makes you feel entirely self-sufficient. If you have good nerves, good health, a great job, and everyone likes you, it is very easy to just ask, why do I need God? I'm doing fine on my own. I'm a good person.
You feel like you're rich in character, so you don't need a loan.
Exactly. Lewis compares it to being rich with money. It blinds you to the fact that you are dependent. But the nasty people, the lonely, the unbalanced, the people with deep inferiority complexes, they hit rock bottom fast.
They know they're broken. They have no illusions about it.
None. They know they need help. They are the lost sheep. Lewis suggests that is exactly why Jesus seemed to attract such awful people in the biblical accounts. Tax collectors, outcasts, people with terrible reputations.
While the nice people stayed away.
Right, because the nice people were too content with their own machinery to realize it needed an overhaul.
That is a massive idea. We usually think God just wants us to be nice. But Lewis is saying that niceness, that natural easygoing temperament, is just a biological gift. It's a gift from God to the person. It's not a gift from the person to God.
Right. And God isn't just trying to make nasty people into nice people. That would just be an improvement of the old machinery. Lewis says God is trying to do something else entirely. He's not interested in just improving the old man. He wants to create a new man.
And this brings us to the next big section of our deep dive. Lewis starts talking about evolution.
Yes, he connects this spiritual transformation to the entire history of the human race.
Now, I feel like whenever people talk about the next step in evolution, they picture sci-fi stuff. You know, bigger brains, telepathy, maybe we all turn into cyborgs.
The whole Superman idea, we imagine we just become more of what we already are. But Lewis says, look at the past. Evolution rarely works in straight lines.
What do you mean by that?
Well, imagine you were watching evolution unfold during the age of the dinosaurs. You see these massive, heavily armored monsters walking around. If you were placing a bet on the future, you would probably think, okay, the next step is going to be even bigger monsters with even thicker armor.
That seems logical. Bigger is better, right?
But you would be totally wrong. The next step was actually a tiny, naked, unarmored little animal with a slightly bigger brain. It went in a completely different direction. It wasn't just more armor. It was a new kind of power entirely.
So Lewis thinks the next step for us isn't just smarter humans or nicer humans.
Correct. He believes the next step has actually already happened. He says it appeared 2,000 years ago with Christ. It is the shift from being creatures to being sons.
Creatures to sons. Okay, that sounds a bit theological. Let's explain it easily for the listener. Can we break that down?
Sure. Think of it like a statue coming to life. A statue has the shape of a man, but it doesn't have the life of a man. We are biological creatures. Lewis calls this bios. It's biological life. It runs on food and air, it decays, and eventually it dies.
That's the factory machinery we were talking about earlier.
Right. But the new step is Zoe. That is spiritual life. It is the life of God. It exists outside of time. It doesn't decay. Lewis's argument is that Christianity is not a moral code meant to make bios a little bit more polite. It is a mechanism for turning bios into Zoe. It is a literal species change.
And Lewis points out that this new step works completely differently than biological evolution, right?
Yes, and this is really important to grasp. In biological evolution, the animal doesn't get a vote. The dinosaur didn't choose to grow feathers, it just happened to them over time. But this new step, it is voluntary.
We have to choose it.
We can absolutely refuse it. We can dig in our heels and say, no thanks, I would rather stay a normal human. I'm happy with my bios life. We can choose to be left behind.
That is a heavy thought. It's not automatic.
No, it's not.
Uh,
And secondly, it doesn't spread through genetics or reproduction. It spreads through what Lewis calls good infection. You catch it by being in personal contact with people who already have it. It's contagious.
I love that image. It's a good infection.
And the stakes here are infinite. Lewis uses this vivid analogy of a horse. He says God isn't trying to teach a horse to just jump higher and higher over fences. He is trying to turn the horse into a winged creature.
Like a Pegasus.
Right. Now imagine you are that horse. Growing wings might be really painful. It might look incredibly awkward at first. You've got these weird lumps growing on your shoulders. You might say, hey, I was a perfectly good horse before this. Why are you ruining my shape? I don't fit in with the normal horses anymore.
But the goal isn't to be a better horse.
The goal is to fly. Once you have the wings, you can soar over fences you never could have jumped. But the transition, it is messy. It's uncomfortable.
This really helps explain why the process of faith often feels like suffering. We think something is going wrong, but Lewis is saying, no, that pain, that's just the wings growing.
Exactly. And that leads to perhaps his most powerful analogy for this entire transition, the womb.
Okay, let's slow down for this one. This is a big concept for you listening to really digest.
Think of a baby in the womb. It is warm, it's safe, it's dark. The womb is the only world that baby knows. It doesn't have to work for food. Everything is just provided automatically. But if the baby stays there forever, it dies.
Right.
It absolutely must be born. It must leave the world of nature and come out into the real world.
So for us, this life, this biological existence, our jobs, our houses, our physical bodies, this is just the womb.
Lewis thinks so. He says we are currently in the womb of nature. And getting born into this spiritual life looks terrifying to us. It looks like we are losing our safety. It looks like we're falling into a void. But Lewis says we have to choose to be born, or we lose everything.
It connects perfectly back to the fear people have. I think a lot of people resist this transformation because they are afraid of losing themselves. They think, if I give everything to God, if I let him take over the factory completely, won't I just become a boring clone? Won't all Christians just end up exactly the same?
It is a very valid fear. We cherish our personalities. We think, if I have the mind of Christ, I lose my own mind.
All right, I don't want to become a religious robot. I want to be me.
Lewis tackles this head-on with two analogies that are just brilliant. The first one is about light.
Light. Okay, lay it on us.
Imagine a bunch of people standing together in a pitch-black room. You can't see them clearly at all. They're just vague shapes. You can't tell who is who. But when you flip the switch and the light comes on, do they all look the same?
No, obviously not. The light makes them visible. You can finally see that one has red hair, one is really tall, one is wearing a striped shirt.
Right. The light doesn't make them identical. It reveals their actual differences. Lewis says Christ is that light. When we let him in, he doesn't wash us out. He brings out the real us that was hidden in the dark all along.
That makes perfect sense. Without the light, we are actually less defined. What is the second analogy?
Salt.
Salt. Okay, how does that work?
Lewis asks us to imagine someone who has never tasted salt before in their entire life. You give him a pinch of it, and it is incredibly strong. It's distinct. It kills all other tastes on the tongue.
It's totally overpowering.
So this person thinks, if I put this really strong stuff on my eggs or my steak, won't everything just taste like salt? Won't it just ruin the flavor of the food?
But anyone who cooks knows that is not how it works.
Exactly. Salt brings out the egginess of the egg. It makes the steak taste more like steak. Lewis argues that Christ is the salt. He doesn't kill your personality. He enters into it and brings out the unique flavor that was always waiting there.
So the idea is that without God, we are actually the ones who are bland.
Yes. This is what Lewis calls the paradox of personality. He argues that when we try really hard to just be ourselves, to be highly original, we actually end up being incredibly generic.
That sounds completely counterintuitive. We live in a world that tells us to be yourself every single day.
But think about it. If you are just running on your own machinery, your biology, your nerves, your background, you are really just a bundle of predictable reactions. Lewis says, sameness is found most among the most natural men.
Meaning what exactly?
Look at tyrants, conquerors, or even just really selfish people in your own life. They are all monotonously alike. They're all driven by the exact same greed, the same ego, the same paranoias. You've seen one, you've seen them all.
But the saints.
The saints are gloriously different. By giving up their self, they found their true personality. It is like that old rule in writing or art.
Which rule is that?
If you sit down and say, I am going to be incredibly original today, you usually end up just being weird, or you end up copying someone else unintentionally. But if you just try to tell the truth, if you forget about being original and just focus on the work itself, You end up being original without even trying.
I love that quote Lewis has. Look for yourself and you find nothing. Look for him and you find yourself.
That is the core mechanism. You can't keep your life. You have to lose it to save it. You have to throw the self away blindly to get a real one back.
So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. The nasty Christian and the nice atheist. We have covered a lot of ground today.
We really have. We learned from C.S. Lewis that niceness is just the raw material. It's the factory machinery. It is a gift, not a virtue. God isn't looking for a factory that just hums along simply because it has expensive robots. He is looking for a factory where the management is actively turning a scrap heap into something functioning.
He's not just doing repairs either. He is doing a full species change.
He's turning the horse into a winged creature. He's moving us from biological bios to spiritual Zoe. And yes, the wings might look super awkward while they are growing. The new man might seem strange or intense compared to the easygoing, nice man.
And finally, we don't need to be afraid of losing who we are. We are like food waiting for salt. We don't have any real flavor until we add the ingredient that seems like it would overpower us.
Beautifully put.
So what does this mean for you, the listener? Why does this matter on a regular Tuesday morning commute?
I think it does two things. First, it gives us patience. Patience with that difficult person in the pew next to you, the Miss Bates in your life. You don't know what kind of broken machinery she is working with behind the scenes.
She might be fighting a massive battle we can't even see.
Exactly. And it gives us patience with ourselves, too. If you are trying to follow this path and you feel like you're still struggling, remember, the goal isn't just to be a nice guy. It is a total renovation.
And it completely changes how we see the nice people, too. We shouldn't envy them or think they have it all figured out. We should realize they might just be asleep in the womb.
But there is a challenge here, too. We can't let ourselves off the hook easily. Lewis has this haunting line in the book, "Careless lives cost talk."
Careless lives cost talk. That's a play on the old war poster, right? Careless talk costs lives.
It is. He means that if we call ourselves Christians but we act like jerks, we make the message unbelievable to the outside world. We literally give them an excuse to reject it.
So even though niceness isn't the source of salvation, the total lack of it is a stumbling block for everyone else.
Right. If the salt loses its saltiness, what good is it? We are supposed to be showing the world the very first signs of this new humanity. If we just look like grumpy versions of the old humanity, we are failing the mission.
That is a heavy thought to leave on. But I think Lewis offers hope too. He says that when you do finally meet one of these new men, these people who have really undergone the change, you instantly recognize them.
You do. He says their voices and faces are different. They're stronger, quieter, happier. They love you more than other men do, but they need you less. They have actually stepped out of the womb.
So the question for you listening right now is this. Are you just trying to polish up your current machinery? Maybe put a fresh coat of paint on the factory walls? Or are you willing to let the management completely tear it down and turn you into something else entirely? Are you willing to be a winged creature, even if the wing buds feel a little uncomfortable right now?
It is the only evolution that actually matters.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.